GDP treaded water in the third quarter. That wasn't really surprising. Some folks says it wasn't breaking news because we were expecting it, but it's always heartbreaking when it comes the way it did a few days ago. The man who sits on top of these very nasty GDP numbers, who put them together, what everybody's done, his job is just to collate the numbers and tell us exactly what it means. Tell us the way it is. Yemi Kale, who is the Statistician General for Nigeria, the head of Bureau of Statistics, is live to us in Abuja studios. Let's have a few minutes conversation with him. Good morning, Dr. Kale. We appreciate your time.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
These must be very difficult times for you, sitting down the first time in Nigeria's history when the GDP was down 3 consecutive quarters. I'm sure you're having a lot of sleepless nights.
Well, yes, as a Nigerian that wants his country to do well, definitely these numbers, when we see them, does not particularly make us excited, but then we try and see the positives coming out from the number, and a few positives coming out from the numbers that we try to focus on. One is agriculture still doing very well. The other is the slight improvement in the non-oil sector. And I think areas of focus of government that the government has been talking about, solid minerals doing well. So I think when you look at those numbers, when you compare it with recent inflation numbers, that yes, going up generally, but the month-on-month slowdown suggests it's the pressure is easing. It gives you a little bit of comfort that we might almost be where we want to go to.
Okay, so let's focus more on the green shoots, as it were. So let's look at those green shoots you talk about. Some folks are surprised that financial services sector also made some good improvement in the third quarter. There's hardly anything you can do in any economy without the financial services sector. If the financial services sector is dead, then the economy is dead, as it were, as a dead horse. There's nothing you can do. You need the financial services industry to transmit finance, financial services within the various public-private sector and get things going. So you need the financial services sector. We talk about agriculture and talk about the solid minerals, what's coming in from there. But let's start with agriculture. Do you think there's something that we've done in the past that we continue doing that is providing you some comfort, looking to the past figures and then looking at what's your outlook?
My outlook for agriculture, my outlook for the economy.
For agriculture?
My outlook for agriculture, we're in the harvest season, and we'll probably be, I think the agricultural sector will continue to do very well, at least for the rest of the year, because firstly, the rains, the harvest was very good, and in addition, that's an area that government says it's focusing on. I think a combination of those two would ensure that agriculture continues to do well. Agriculture has always done well anyway in Nigeria, so when you combine these two factors, I expect that agriculture will do well, continue to do well to the end of the year.
In terms of the non-oil sector as a whole, with about 0.03% year-on-year data figure that was, and that gives you some comfort that, look, whatever happens, the fiscal side is doing something that perhaps is giving us some, not really red in another sector, but something like amber to say, look, we're ready to go, we can as well turn green from where we are rather than red.
Well, if I dissect the numbers a little bit, I mean, the non-oil sector is agriculture, it is manufacturing, and then the rest of the services sector. Agriculture was positive, the other two services, and services was slightly negative, and manufacturing was very negative. But like I said, if you look at the services sector, it did not do as, it was negative, but it was not as negative, if you want to say that, as it was in the previous quarter, despite the fact that manufacturing sector was negative, was even worse. So again, it's a delicate balancing act. I think it's the agricultural sector, again, like I said, that would prop up the entire economy. No matter what crisis you are facing, it's always, whatever policy you introduce, there are sectors that benefit and there are others that don't. There are businesses that would benefit as a result of reacting positively to the circumstances they find themselves, and there are others that won't. So in the economy, you still have some areas doing well and you have other areas not doing very well. I think that's actually the trend that will continue to for the rest of the year.
I'm sure we're just about a few weeks to the end of the year. I'm sure by now your staffers would have started gathering numbers and say this is what Q4 most likely will look like. What would they tell us?
Year to date, we're at minus 1.5.
On aggregate?
On aggregate, year to date, yes. And to avoid a negative growth for 2016, would have to grow by at least 4.3% in the fourth quarter. That is excessively difficult, or some might say almost impossible, considering that we're already towards the end of November. And the numbers we are getting so far, things are getting better, but probably not as good as we expected, certainly not to get to 4%. So the outlook is more of things improving, but it's a very, I think even if we get out of recession in the fourth quarter, it will be more or less borderline. So I think it's on that marginal.
The projections by the World Bank, IMF and co was about 2% for the year. So with 1.5% aggregate so far, you think perhaps we're not likely to get worse than 2% on aggregate for the year? I
would be very surprised if we get to 2%, a negative 2% for the year. I think all the factors ordinarily suggest that we should do better than that. The oil, for example, let me quickly explain the oil and gas sector. Now we say the non-oil is, we say oil is about 9%, and we say non-oil is 91%. But in reality, of that 91%, about 52% of it is indirectly dependent on what is going on in the oil sector. So as soon as the oil sector tanks, it pulls a huge part of the non-oil sector down with it. What we're hearing so far is that there's an improvement in oil production in the fourth quarter. I think we're saying we are close to 2 million barrels per day. If that is true, then we expect an improvement in the oil sector, which suggests that the fourth quarter might be better than the third quarter. But again, like I said, those are the preliminary numbers we are seeing, and at the end of the day, we'll see where. But like I said, it's probably borderline. It can tilt in any direction, but I expect that it will tilt positively. Again, you have the seasonal effects, the Christmas and so on. That
end of year.
Yes, like trading and other expenditure. So I expect, again, more household consumption expenditure as well, which might prop up overall GDP.
I'm sure there's a conversation we're going to continue to have. Thank you very much for coming. Harriet, back to you. You heard Dr. Yemi Kale, the statistician general there, pouring some cold water on the very hot GDP numbers. What do you make of it?
Well,
I got a hot cup of coffee here, so I don't know what you think about.
Well, unfortunately for me, Bosin, I don't have even cold water here with me. But you see, it's very good for us to have this in perspective. And we'd like to thank Dr. Yemi Kale for coming on the program this morning and helping to flesh up those numbers. And even though they are negative, it is where we are and it is what it is. It gives everybody a fair idea of what exactly that we're dealing with. And he mentioned that one of the growing sectors that we've noticed, particularly growing the non-oil sector and contributing to the GDP, is agriculture. And that's the focus I'll be having, the discussion I'll be having next with Amaka Ajebu, who's an economic research analyst from financial derivatives company. She'll be joining me after now. Stay with us.